We say hi to Russell Brown, the Lions Wire Analyst, does a great job, fantasy betting pros, draft analyst as well, at Russ NFL Draft. So we'll have plenty of time to get into the matchup. Right now, it's the Lions at the Niners. At DraftKings, it's the 49ers 7.5. Remember, jumped up from the 7. But let's start with the sappy stuff, Russell. How's it feel? Paint the picture of our home state of Michigan as the Lions are headed to the the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, brother, it's an amazing feeling. It really is. I mean, just living here, growing up here, and everything, how passionate this fan base is. But it's like everywhere you go, to the grocery store, the gas station, everybody's talking about it. I mean, I'm talking to people I've never even met before in my life, and it's like you're passing by and they're like, "Go Lions!" They got the Lions hats on, the jerseys, the whole nine, and it's an awesome feeling. I mean, I'm 32 years old, and I've never seen this before. I mean, the last time it happened, I was in diapers. So, like, to see this, it's surreal, and I've just been trying to enjoy the ride. And I said it on my podcast a few weeks ago. I said it probably on this show. This team is different. And there's just something different about them. It could be Dan Campbell. It could be the players. But there's just something different here, and I'm excited for Sunday.
Russell, Patrick will get your selection at the end of the segment. But contrast right now with the energy and the enthusiasm with the actual expectations for Sunday, just from the Lions fans and fan base.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where everybody's – I don't think anybody's overly nervous on this matchup. I think everybody's feeling pretty good. And I think it's one of those where everybody's just kind of waiting to see what the defense does. How do they respond to the 49ers offense? And ultimately, I think, looking at the spread of this game, I wouldn't be surprised if the betting market in Metro Detroit takes the +7, just simply because the Lions have everything to play for. They have nothing to lose. I mean, this is it. The season either ends or it continues, and they realize that, and they're going to put it all on the table. So I think people are expecting a crazy game as far as maybe some high scoring, but Dan Campbell to really take some chances in this one.
Okay, Russell Brown joining us, the Lions Wire. Let's start talking matchups. Like, what's the first thing that jumped out at you, Lions 49ers, as far as what the Lions can exploit offensively?
Yeah, I mean, they for their offense, for the Lions, they have to find ways to run the football. I mean, the 49ers, they give up just over 4 yards per carry, which is quite a bit in the NFL. I mean, the Lions only allow about 3.7 yards per carry. So, I mean, we're talking, fractions of a yard here, but it's one of those where that makes a difference. This is the game of inches, and the Lions, if they can find ways to run the football offensively, it's going to obviously keep their offense on the field, keep the 49ers off the field. And it's one of those where the game script on the 49ers has been for teams to pass because they fall behind so quickly. Go back to week 1 or week 2 when they played the Steelers. The Steelers got absolutely destroyed in that game. They weren't going to run the football. And there's other teams that they played throughout the year where the 49ers ran the score up and they were way ahead and the game script changes. I don't know if that happens against Detroit. I think Detroit is a team that you don't want them throwing the football because Jared Goff is so efficient with the dagger throw and the dagger concepts and the stuff off of play action where they're going to want to try to stop the run. But offensively for Detroit, they are definitely going to have to get the ground game going. And then just defensively for Detroit, they have to find ways to limit Christian McCaffrey with the long runs. We know he's going to catch passes out of the backfield, but prior to this past weekend, the Lions were the only team in the NFL to not give up a receiving touchdown in the NFL. Can they limit that from Christian McCaffrey? And if they can defeat the zone blocking scheme of the reach blocks that we see from San Francisco, if John Kaminsky, Benito Jones, Aleem McNeil, the guys in the middle there, if they can find ways to slow that down and fight pressure with pressure, the Lions defense is going to really step up too.
Russell, you mentioned stopping the run. They like to run the nickel package about 70% of the times. Could that be a hindrance defensively against a team that San Francisco that wants to be run first?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, the Lions have struggled with 4 defensive backs on the field. I think adding a 5th in there, especially with the addition of Gardner Johnson back into the fold, I think it helps them. I think a lot of people, especially in the analytics department, forget that he has been out for most of the season. And prior to, maybe the last 4 or 5 weeks, they didn't really have another presence outside of Brian Branch, the mixture of Tracy Walker and Kirby Joseph, but they've seen the emergence of Gardner Johnson back into the fold, and Ifeatu Melifonwu. I think those guys are going to play down in the box with Brian Branch quite a bit. They like to run a lot of cover 3 stuff, so you're going to probably see Kirby Joseph in the middle third, or if they run their cover 1, he'll have the single high safety responsibility. So I think it's going to be kind of mix and match, and Aaron Glenn was in his bag a little bit against the Bucs. I think it was the best defensive game he had called, and you take away really what happened at the end of the first half. They slowed down the Buccaneers quite a bit in that game, but we're going to see a lot of odd man fronts. We're going to see different types of blitz packages. They're going to get aggressive. And again, just like the offense with Dan Campbell and going for it on 4th down, Aaron Glenn's going to get aggressive, and he's going to put it all on the line, I think.
Jahmyr Gibbs, now, it had been building, and he had a tremendous year, but that was like a national breakout party last weekend, and it was awesome. Just the stiff arms, the cuts, Russell, that was sweet. Now, outside the tackles, the 49ers struggle with running backs that get outside the tackles, and that's certainly something Gibbs can do. I'm going to give you his rushing prop. His number's 47.5 over at DraftKings. So, again, rush yards, 47.5. Do you expect heavy usage as far as Gibbs?
I do. I do, just simply because the trend in the second half has been more Jahmyr Gibbs to start the second half. So I don't know if David Montgomery's got an injury that's maybe lingering or kind of causing him to not be used as much in the second half, but it just feels like in the second half of football games, we're seeing more of Jahmyr Gibbs. And with his explosiveness and, like you mentioned, the ability of him to get outside of the tackle box and the lack of efficiency in stopping the run outside of the tackle box for the 49ers, it only takes one big run. I would take the over on that just simply because I think he can have a big game. I mean, if it's one of those where you think he can get 50, 60 yards, I think it's definitely in the cards. And if they have a shot at winning this thing, they're going to need Gibbs to have a great game.
Russell, you mentioned overs. The Detroit team total set at 21.5. They exceeded that number 14 out of 19 times, including the postseason this year. Do you expect them to be able to get 22 or more in this one?
I do. I think when you look at what the Packers did, I think the Lions' offense is, while it might not be as explosive as the Packers has been in recent weeks, I think it's one of those where they've been consistent across the board. And you mentioned they've hit that number 14 out of 19 times. I think you got to roll with that trend and trust that they can put up at least 24 points. And I think, with where the total's at, I think that Vegas is kind of expecting maybe a 28-24 type game or maybe 31-24, 31-27 type game in this one. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. But I would take the over just simply because of where this offense is.
Russell, we had Stoney on the other day, and he was talking about the popularity of Dan Campbell. Give us an idea. Contextualize Dan Campbell right now in the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan and his popularity.
Oh, man. I mean, if you want to talk about a guy that if he decided to pull like an Arnold Schwarzenegger and just run for governor, it wouldn't be surprising if he won all the votes. I mean, he is just the definition of blue collar city people that are from this state. I mean, he understands that we've been kicked, we've been down, and I'm taking some of the words from his first press speech, but it's just, he is such a genuine guy, and you see it in the post-game speeches during the week, during the speeches that he gives to the media, and it's just, he is a true guy that stays true to who he is, and he's passionate about what he's talking about. And I think when you just look at him and how he's developed the trust in this locker room, it's just different. And I think that's why he takes so many gambles and he risks it all, and he kind of just puts his marbles on the table because he has nothing to lose, because before him, there really hasn't been much to write home about in this city when it comes to this football team outside of the early 90s and things like that. There's been a couple of glimpses here and there, but it's not been consistent. And him and Brad Holmes had to clean up a huge mess from Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, and he's done a phenomenal job doing it. And I think it's just one of those where they work in hand together in tandem. And I just love Dan Campbell and everything that he's done. At first I thought it was all talk, but it's definitely all show and some.
Let's get it. I'm excited for Sunday. Russell Brown, great job. The Lions Wire, I encourage you to read them. Also, Draft Time. Russell's as good as anybody. At Russ NFL Draft. Make sure you give him a follow. Thank you, Russell, and enjoy the football this weekend.
Appreciate it, guys.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.